Folks, over the weekend, we saw massive protests take place all across the country, spontaneous protests, all as a result of the grand jury decision not to indict Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. We saw protests, Washington, D.C., traffic being blocked. We saw protests taking place in Georgetown. We also saw it happening across the country, whether it was in Oklahoma City. We also saw it taking place in different parts of the country. And in fact, on Friday, so many folks were focused on shopping, but in St. Louis, two malls in the St. Louis area were absolutely shut down because of the protests. They also had something called die-ins, where what they did was they actually, folks laid down in terms of as if they were actually dying. And so we saw this kind of action also taking place right now. The NAACP, they're conducting a march from Ferguson to the state capitol there in Missouri as well. We'll go back to our panel, Avis Jones-DeWeaver, also Francesca Chambers, and Lauren Victoria Burke. It's very interesting watching mainstream media try to figure out what in the hell is going on. Because I've seen these comments, oh, this is not a tipping point. This is just something that's sort of happening. You don't have this number of spontaneous protests in more than 100, nearly 200 cities across the country, and it's just sort of folks venting. No, I think it goes deeper than that. We got a photo right here. Brazilian people in solidarity with Ferguson. And the other piece is this, and I think this is critically important. Mainstream media wants to make all of this about Mike Brown, when in fact, this really is a collection of all of these stories we've been covering, and sort of Ferguson is sort of the flashpoint, but it really speaks to all of these stories.
Exactly. I mean, I am a mother. And I have an 18-year-old son, and I have an 11-year-old son. And so when I see, for example, a Tamir Rice killed within 2 seconds or less on site, and then have the police officer say, I think he's 20, and have him lay there and suffer for 4 minutes. I have an 11-year-old, and I can tell you that though he wants to be a tween or a teen or a young man, he's going to cry if he's hurt. Imagine the agony that that child was in for minutes. And so as all of this happens all across the nation, there are mothers, there are fathers, there are people who understand that it is our children who are under attack. And frankly, we've had enough, and I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, but at the same time, and something that I've been talking about a lot, is these sorts of things undermine other police officers as well, because it makes other police officers look guilty, and I think that that's a shame.
I think that that's not as important. What's more important are dead bodies. If you look guilty, the problem is that there is a lack of accountability.
I do agree with you, but
the trust has been broken. There is no trust, and there needs not be trust until there is accountability for dead bodies all over this country.
But I think you're missing the point that I'm trying to make, which is that there does need to be that trust. We need to be able to trust our police officers, number one. At the same time, however, police officers need to be able to get out there, and they need to be able to do their job, and they need to not be able to be in fear that if they do have to respond to a car, if they do have to respond to a call, that they're going to be demonized nationally. And I'm not taking a side like in the Darren Wilson case specifically.
Mike a demon. Who's being demonized? I mean,
I'm not talking about the Darren Wilson case specifically.
Well, let's talk about the Darren Wilson case, as a matter of fact. I mean, we live in an era right now of the lowest violent crime since the 1950s. We live in an era where the least number of cops are being shot in the line of duty. This is not to minimize the 44 cops who were shot last year in the line of duty, but at the same time, we don't live in an age of violent crime, like the crack cocaine era, for example, in the 1980s when all this legislation was passing. So it's interesting that we're dealing with this sort of these extrajudicial actions by police at a time when crime is at its lowest point. You see people that keep making these points about black-on-black violence, but crime overall, black and white, is really low right now, and we're dealing with these sort of odd incidents, not just Michael Brown.
Right.
You know, Amadou Diallo, Sean Bell, we can go on and on, Jimmy Lee Williams, we can go on and on and on with these cases. So something's going on. I think it's a lack of training, frankly. I mean, we got more cops in this area in D.C. than almost any other area, but but federal police are really well trained. Yeah. So you very rarely hear instances around here of the type that we've heard with Darren Wilson in a smaller town with a lack of training, where you just sort of get this shoot first, ask questions later type of situation. You don't hear about it in places where cops are trained well.
I do absolutely think it is, like you're saying, an issue of training. And as we were talking about over the break, it's not just the police, it's the dispatchers as well. They obviously need to go through more rigorous training. And so that when they were, when they take a call, they obviously need to be very detail oriented and mention that it's a kid and it may be a toy, because as it appears to have happened in this most recent case, that didn't happen. Right. And this could have been completely different.
Funny
if that
thing, Ohio is an open carry state. Yeah. So let's say if it was a real gun, they pulled up and shot him. That was it.
Right.
So I'm thinking, if you're in an open carry state, that kid actually does have the right to open carry. So it's interesting that the procedure was, we're going to roll up and shoot him.
Especially if you're the police officer and you thought he was 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're the police officer, you thought he was 20. You would think that if you're a police officer, let's just, so if I get this report that someone is pointing a gun at people, I arrive on the scene. Wouldn't I, as a cop, actually assess the scene first?
See, just like with the John Crawford case, same exact thing we see on video. They show up, that cop rounds the corner in that aisle and shoots. No announce, no waiting, no nothing. See, I can understand.
In fact, in the John Crawford case, Crawford was on the other end of the aisle.
And of course, it's reasonable.
They shot from this end of the grocery aisle to the other end.
Right.
Without even announcing.
To me, it's reasonable.
Drop the gun, police.
Exactly. It's reasonable for cops to be coming in with the gun in their hand when they hear the dispatcher tell them that somebody has a weapon. I'm totally down with that. I think the cops should come in ready. But this sort of thing that we're seeing on video, where people are just effectively being shot without warning, without anything. Clearly, the cop hadn't heard any gunfire when he came in.
Nothing.
So the totality of it doesn't make sense.
So what I tell my sons is, do not trust the police. I would be negligent as a parent to tell my sons to trust in the police. I tell them, trust and believe you will be accused to be guilty on sight. Trust and believe your life is in danger and you need to act accordingly.
I'm not a parent, but you know what? At this point, I probably wouldn't let my kid play in the open with a toy gun anymore. And it's sad.
You could if your child was white. Even if your child was white.
Even if my kid was white.
In the same
even if my kid was white, I probably wouldn't let them play with a toy gun in the open.
But we got these photos coming in from the store of white guys with AK-47s on their shoulder in open carry states to show that open carry is so cool. Hey, okay, fine. None of them has been shot dead. So this idea that it's not skin color, you got to be kidding me. Every time somebody wants to do an open carry demonstration and they show up with heavy, I'm talking heavy arms, nothing happens with those guys.
Well,
this kid gets shot dead.
Well, as far as the white kids, though, there's plenty of white kids getting suspended in their schools for bringing in toy guns.
None of them being shot dead.
None of them being shot
dead.
I'm just saying it's not just black kids.
Suspended and shot dead, two different things.
And let's not even talk about the school-to-prison pipeline. We know that those disparities.
1 second, we come back, folks. This photo here, or this video here, is getting lots of attention today. Roll the video, please. St. Louis Rams players exercising their right to speak. So why are people upset? I'm going to break it down when we come back. This is News 1 Now with Roland Martin.